The Lion is the primarch of the First Legion of the Space Marines, also known as the Dark Angels. He has returned in the Era Indomitus after a 10,000-year slumber in the depths of the rock. After his duel with the arch-traitor Luther, he was taken away by the Watchers in the Dark deep into a cavern that nobody knew the location of, and in the chapter's time of need, he finally returned. He awoke in a place known as Mirror Caliban, where he had none of his memories, and through the help of a Watcher in the Dark, he eventually reclaimed his memories as well as his unique power sword, the Fealty, as well as the Emperor's Shield. This marked his return to the 41st millennium, where he is disgusted with the current state of the Imperium, often acting on his own or with his Risen. He bypasses most Imperial forces, especially Imperial legislative forces, and acts on his own, using his ability to forest walk to go where he is needed. Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and today we are covering the Primarch of the Dark Angels, the Lion. So, the Lion comes in at a very hefty 300 points, so he has to do a lot to be worth it. In terms of stats, he has very interesting stats, as he's a Primarch: movement 8 inches, toughness 9, a 2+ save, a 3+ invulnerable save, 10 wounds, leadership 5+, and OC 4. These are all very, very good. The main highlight being his 3+ invulnerable save, which is one of, I believe, only 2 remaining in the game, with Azerman possessing the other one. This 3+ invulnerable save means that he can be immensely difficult to kill, and of course a 2+ save is good underneath that in case he's getting shot with 0 AP weapons. He has a lot of wounds at 10, his leadership is at 5+, so he's very unlikely to ever fail Battle Shock. He really is a beefcake when it comes to stats, to put it lightly. His toughness of 9 means he's highly resilient to most kinds of weaponry, and even anti-tank weapons have the problem of his 3+ invulnerable save. It takes a lot of focus fire to bring this guy down. In terms of ranged weapons, he has his unique combi weapon, the Arma Luminous, which has his bolt profile, which has pistol, 4 attacks that hit on 2s, 12-inch range, strength 4, AP 1, and damage 2. Then in terms of the plasma profile, it has pistol as well, only 2 attacks that hit on 2s at 12-inch range with strength 8, AP 3, and damage 2. Both very solid profiles, the bolt profile being better for killing light and medium infantry, and plasma, of course, better for heavy infantry and chipping at light vehicles. It is a solid profile, but of course the Lion is famed for his dueling capabilities, and that is where Fealty comes in, his melee weapon. Fealty has two modes, Strike and Sweep. The Strike has lethal hits, which has 8 attacks that hit on 2s at strength 12, AP 4, and damage 4. About as devastating as a profile can get. It really is extremely effective against just about everything in the game. Its high AP means that you can't hide behind a good save, its high strength means that there's nothing that it won't wound efficiently, and its high damage means that any failed save is extremely painful. And then it can switch to Sweep with Sustained Hits 1, 16 attacks that hit on 2s at strength 6, AP 3, and damage 1. Also extremely good anti-infantry killing. It's good for killing orcs, for killing space marines, for killing like guardsmen. There's really nothing that this guy won't efficiently chop through. Of course, a giant horde of, say, 25 models of like a command squad and guardsmen could definitely give him trouble. However, that still wouldn't necessarily be the end of the world, as you usually don't want this guy just roaming around by himself, but we'll get into that later. Of course, being a centerpiece model, he does have a select a buff ability, as I call it. Primarch of the First Legion, in your command phase, select one of the following buffs to be active until the next command phase. All Secrets Revealed is sort of the fun and fluffy one, I would say. When an enemy unit within 12 inches of this model uses a stratagem, you just instantly gain 1 CP. Of course, the Dark Angels don't have problems generating CP, but it does mean you have more to go around. They must then take a Battle Shock test. If they fail it, the stratagem has no effect and still counts as being used. Now this is a bit scattergun and matchup dependent, but against someone like Guard, this could truly be devastating if you're able to turn off, say, like Fields of Fire, or any of their other stratagems if they fail their Battle Shock, and there's no way to use it again as it already counts as being used. In terms of Martial Exemplar, which is kind of his damage buff, while friendly Adeptus Astartes models are within 6 inches to this, add 1 to the hit roll in melee. This is generally useful for things like Inner Circle Companions that hit on 3s, and does help him be pretty much immune to hit modifiers, meaning that he'll almost always be hitting on 2s if he has this buff active, which there's good reason to activate it right before he gets into combat. Though I think the best of his buffs is actually no hiding from the Watchers. No hiding from the Watchers is an aura of 6 inches around him, and then while friendly Adeptus Astartes units are within it, they have a 4+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. Now, we know the Lion is almost immune to most kinds of firepower, given his 3+ invulnerable save, but things like devastating wounds or doom bolts or psychic attacks that have devastating wounds could chew through him disappointingly quickly. However, with a 4+ feel no pain, which is one of the most busted abilities you can have, he is able to reflect a lot of that damage off of him, and it extends to the units around him. While it's not uncommon for Dark Angel's units to have a Watcher in the Dark, this is useful, as you don't need to use your once per battle thing that the other Watchers usually have. This pairs extremely well with just about any kind of unit, and it can apply to any Adeptus Astartes unit, whether it's a tank or it's some scouts or whatever it may be. This does, of course, pair well with the fact that he wants his bodyguard to be nearby, which we will get into once we wrap up talking about these. But returning to the other two, All Secrets Revealed is an interesting one that I think you need to have confidence people are going to use it, or people are going to play into it. If the Lion is in the center of the board with his bodyguard, there's not much they can do to not do that, except not use stratagems, which for some armies doesn't really matter, but for some really do. For example, Chaos Space Marines in the Zealots, they can't get their reroll wounds as efficiently because there's a very solid chance that they just lose the battle shock and then they wasted a CP and you gained a CP. This could be useful to use things like, what's the name? Counteroffensive, sorry, it was slipping my memory. Or any other expensive stratagem, and with Azrael around, you can pretty consistently just, be using stratagems all the time, if you know what I mean. Now, of course, these are not his only abilities. He does have 2 extra abilities that we're going to cover right now. And one last note on Martial Exemplar. It is generally useful, but I'd say out of the 3 is probably the most tame, though if you are fighting someone with -1 to hit, of course bring that so you're not debuffing his damage. In terms of his other 2 abilities, the Emperor's Shield, which is his big golden shield, when a melee attack is allocated to this model, on each saving throw of a 6+, the attacker suffers 1 mortal wound. This isn't anything too special, though it does discourage hordes from trying to fight back against him, though you can't in this edition you can't choose to not fight. If you're in melee, you do have to fight, so even if some guardsmen do survive, there is a chance that, you bounce back damage onto them and instantly kill them. This is, of course, very useful when it comes up. Nothing major, though. And while we have skipped on to best use, I will cover, there's a friendly Adeptus Astartes infantry model within 3 inches. This guy's lone operative. We're going to cover how to proc that here. So the Lion, it does blend sort of a simplicity of his giant cannon melee and his complex buffs, which I really do like. He's a fun unit to use, really. His damage is very general purpose at both range and in melee. While he won't be shooting down tanks, he will certainly be able to chip most things, or flat out blow up some infantry models. As mentioned before, he's immensely durable. A 3+ invulnerable save is something that should not be understated. That means 66% of all damage that manages to get to him saving will just be deflected. And anything less than that, of course, is going to be very uncommon because of his high toughness and high durability. He is tough. It is no way around it. In terms of bodyguard choices, I think Deathwing Knights would make a fine choice given their durability. Inner Circle Companions can keep up with them a little better. Though, of course, it's not the end of the world, and one of the best things you can do is run the Combi Weapon Lieutenant, as he has Lone Operative and the Infantry keyword. So long as he's palling around with the Lion, you can't be shot outside 12 inches because they can't shoot the bodyguard, and since they can't shoot the bodyguard, he'll always have Lone Operative, so they can't shoot the Lion. He's a slight points tax, but I'd say he's definitely worth bringing for the Lion, if for no other reason than to just keep him safe, as well as his buff being genuinely good against your marked objective, if you will. One weird thing to note is that he doesn't have the Deathwing keyword, which seems strange. He really should be. He is the Primarch of the Dark Angels. How could he not be part of the Inner Circle? But that's just really weird. But granted, he would probably be just so insane with +1 to wound that they were like, well, he doesn't need that. Though he should have it. Though in other detachments, like Gladius Task Force, he can easily get it with the Lance stratagem, which would definitely be worth using, because that would take his melee damage from Apocalyptic to basically the Tsar Bomba of 40k. I'm not sure there's much that could withstand that outside of perhaps another Lion. Outside of that, I'd say he's really at home in almost any detachment. As I mentioned, he doesn't have the Deathwing keyword, but having the rest of your army be stronger and your Deathwing Knight's bodyguards be stronger isn't necessarily a bad thing. And of course, they love the 6-inch aura of resistance to mortal wounds, especially because mortal wounds are the best way to deal with Terminators. But in terms of other detachments, Gladius is good for any Space Marine unit. Stormlance would allow him to advance and charge, and he does move 8 inches, so with an advance he's averaging, 11 inches, which is pretty solid, and then an advanced charge is always good. I'd say he fits in rather well just about everywhere. But that has been pretty much my review of the Primarch of the Dark Angels, Lionel Johnson. That wraps up all of the Dark Angels units. We just have to cover a couple detachments, and then we're done. I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.